Shabbos, good Shabbos. I want to tell you one of my favorite stories with the upcoming bris. That the first story I thought of when I thought of Shlomo Carlebach and what he would have to think about a bris coming up real soon in our family. So everybody usually thinks that holy means far out, but the Heilige Ishbitzer says holy really means right there. What's the Ishbitzer saying? That, for example, God is called holy because he's always there when you need him. And it's the same thing with tzaddikim, the holy Jews. You know, in the former good days, what did simple Yidden do when they were in trouble? They went to the big Rebbes, the holy masters, because the tzaddikim were always there for them. The Rebbes taught the most exalted Torahs. They encouraged people to do tshuva, tried to fix their souls. But most of all, they wanted to ease the burden of suffering Yidden in this world. What they wanted most was to help. At the beginning of the 20th century, Russia and Japan went to war, and sadly enough, the Russian authorities loved to draft young Jewish men, especially yeshiva students, into the army to fight the Japanese. These poor Jews didn't want to interrupt their studies or risk their lives for a country that gave them nothing but trouble. And they knew that their time in the army would be nothing but insult and pain. So what'd they do? They went to the holy masters, like Rebbe Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter, the Heilige, the holy Sfas Emes, for help. And the Rebbes would bless them, and through some miracle, they would not have to go to war. One day, the Sfas Emes noticed a young man waiting with all the others for a blessing to be saved from the army. And this Yiddah looked so gentle, so sweet. It was clear that Imamish wasn't fit to be a soldier. When it was his turn to see the Rebbe, his voice was so low, the Sfas Emes could hardly hear him. And all he said so softly and sadly was, "Holy Master, I've been drafted." The Sfas Emes had never seen anybody look as broken as this holy Jew. Gewalt, he thought, he's just a child. He's much too young for all this. Then, turning to the young man, he said, "Wait here." He went into his private room, and when he came out a few minutes later, he silently handed the boy a book. The young man glanced at the title. It was a manual on how to do circumcisions, how to perform a bris. The youth looked at the Sfas Emes in surprise. "Holy Master," he started to ask. But the Rebbe interrupted him. "My sweetest friend, listen to me. Read this book. Learn how to do a circumcision. And I bless you. And even if you have to go into the army, you should come back safe and whole, b'shalom, in peace." "But Rebbe," the young man cried, "I don't want to go to war. Bless me that I won't be drafted at all." But the Sfas Emes was no longer paying attention. He was already talking to the next person in line. In the end, the sweet young Yid did go into the army, went into the Russian army, and he was sent to basic training. Army life is very hard for him, especially one thing. The other soldiers, peasants, really were mamish so dirty. Their uniforms were always wrinkled and soiled. Their shoes were never shined. They never cleaned their barracks. They didn't know how to stand in straight lines, and they didn't even take care of their rifles. The Jewish boy had always been very neat, very orderly, and he hated living in such sloppiness and filth. He himself was always careful to keep his own things in perfect order, and so, Gewalt, he was the only one in his unit who looked or acted anything like a proper soldier. And whenever he had a few spare minutes, or he felt particularly sad and lonely, he thought of his strange meeting with the holy Sfas Emes. And as the Rebbe had instructed him, he read the little manual on circumcision from cover to cover. One day, a general came to review the new recruits. He immediately noticed the sorry state of the rooms, the clothing, and the rifles, and shouted at the commanding officer, "What's going on here? Is this how soldiers are supposed to be? It's a disgrace." "Sir, I'm really sorry. To tell you the truth, I'm also ashamed of these men. I've tried to get them to shape up, but still, there's one soldier. I'm really proud of him. He's a Jew. He's always clean and neat. He follows orders well. He's mamish a good soldier, despite his being Jewish." "Is that so?" the general said. "Then bring him to me. I want to see this Jew for myself." When the sweet Jewish soldier was ordered to report to the Russian general, he trembled in fear. What could such an important person want from him? It couldn't be anything good. Still, he had no choice, so he appeared as instructed at the door of the commanding officer's private office. The general ushered the boy into the room, and suddenly, without saying a word, he took out a pistol and pointed it at the young soldier. The poor Yid started to shake. The general looked at him coldly and demanded in his most intimidating voice, "Is it true what they say, that you only eat kosher food?" The young man was afraid to admit it, but he knew better than to lie. He swallowed hard and he answered, "Yes, sir." The general marched up to him and he held the pistol against his chest. "You're now a soldier in the army of the Tsar of Russia, and the Tsar requires that his soldiers have strong bodies. They must eat all the food they are given. I hereby order you to eat whatever is put before you, kosher or not." Suddenly, the Yid was more angry than afraid. "Eat tray food, not kosher food? Never!" So he said in a clear, strong voice, "I'm sorry, sir, but I cannot obey that order. I'm a Jew. I serve God, not the Russian Tsar." The general stared at him again and he asked, "Is it also true that you keep the Shabbat? The Jewish Shabbat?" This time the young soldier didn't even hesitate. "Yes, sir, I do." "What?" the general cried. "A soldier of the Tsar wasting time, taking a day off of every week and in the middle of a war? I hereby order you to work every day." And he pushed his pistol harder against the youth's heart. The young Jew knew that this was mamish the test of his life. The general could kill him in a second. Still, he squared his shoulders, stood up a little straighter, and answered firmly, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't do that. There is no way I will work on Shabbos. I may be in the Russian army, but the only one I serve is God in heaven." Suddenly, the general smiled and put away his gun. "It's all right," he said to the astonished Jew. "I'm not going to shoot you. It's just that I had to be sure. You see, nobody knows this, but I'm also a Jew. I was drafted just like you and worked really hard in the army, just like you do. I kept a low profile, and after a while, people forgot I was Jewish. And now, as you can see, I'm at the top. And my wife just had a baby, a son. And the thing is, I don't know exactly why, but I want him to have a real kosher circumcision. Now, I can't go to a regular mohel, a circumciser, because I have to keep his wrist absolutely secret. If the army remembers I'm a Yid, I won't just lose my position, I could also lose my life. So I've been looking all over for a Jew here in the army who can do the circumcision quietly for me. And when I heard about you, I thought you might be the one. I'm not really religious, but I do know one thing. A mohel has to keep Shabbos and eat kosher and generally observe the commandments. That's why I asked you those questions. I was testing you to see if you kept the mitzvahs. And now that I see what a good Yid you are, I'll make you a deal. I want you to be my mohel, my circumciser. I'll sign a pass for you, tell him I need you on my own staff, and take you home with me. And after you circumcise my son, I'll give you civilian clothing and you can go on your way." The young Jewish soldier couldn't believe his ears. Gewalt. Thanks to this little manual, a circumcision was something he knew how to do. And for the first time, he mamish appreciated Rav Yehuda Aryeh Leib's true holiness. The Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, had such Ruach HaKodesh, such divine spirit, that he'd foresee not only his own deed, but also that of this hidden Jew. The boy grasped both of the general's hands, lifted up his eyes to the heaven, and cried, "Hodu Lashem ki tov." Give thanks to God, for he is good. And give thanks to his servant and messenger, the holy Sfas Emes. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. May we merit to meet the right rabbis, meet the right teachers, meet the right people to send us God's clarity as to what we need to do in this world. Have a beautiful Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.